Alright, hello everyone and welcome to the channel. Glad you could join me. I want to talk about some possible counters to the F-14A. As it stands right now, the F-14A is looking exceptionally powerful. More importantly, the Phoenix missiles are active radar guided, and the AUG-9 radar features a track while scan mode, which allows the F-14 to engage multiple targets rapidly. Obviously, such a leap in capability demands a strong counter. I want to review a few aircraft that could possibly counter the F-14. I'll try to keep the timeline pretty close, but the temporal gap is a real problem, and honestly, it's not my problem to solve. This is Gaijin's problem to solve, and I suspect they've probably been dealing with this for a while. You know, the issue of the eras is pretty challenging. This isn't going to work by finding some aircraft with the same release dates and then matching them with each other, because nations built 4th generation fighters with similar capabilities on different timelines. For example, the F-14 was introduced in 1974, and Russia, since I'm going to talk about their options first, didn't have an immediate answer to it. One of the first choices for Russia, and it's not optimal at all, is the MiG-25P. This aircraft was armed with 4 R-40 AA-6 Acrid missiles, if you want to use the NATO code name. And those missiles were radar, semi-active radar homing, and infrared guided, and had a range up to 60 miles. And the MiG-25 also carried the R-60, it carried the R-23, and it also, from the research, was also able to carry the R-73. And it had the Smerch A2 radar, NATO codename Foxfire. So this was a real fast, high altitude interceptor. It was mostly designed to shoot down American bombers and to try and intercept the SR-71. Not very agile, not really my first choice as a counter for the F-14. So the MiG-25 was introduced in 1970, and the next jet up was introduced in 1981, and that's the MiG-31 Foxhound. A little bit better, this featured the Zaslon S-800 phased array radar with an infrared search and track as well. A phased array radar, I think it was one of the first phased array radars on a jet. It had true look down, shoot down capability. It also carried the R-33 semi-active radar homing missile with like a 75-kilometer range, the R-40 TD-1s, R-73 Archers a little later on. Later on as well, the R-77 Adder, which is the active radar homing missile, also carried R-60 MKs. So, the MiG-31 has some capability, but really this thing is a long-range, supersonic interceptor. Really does kind of like the MiG-25, but a lot better. So specifically designed to track multiple targets simultaneously at high altitudes. So kind of some capabilities similar to the F-14, but really not the same. But still, the MiG-31 does have good capability. Its radar has a track while scan mode, enabling it to engage, multiple aircraft pretty rapidly with the R-33s. But mostly the MiG-31 was designed to go after large targets, like the Blackbird, the SR-71 Blackbird, the B-1 bomber, B-52s. So this isn't really a capable dogfighter or something like that. So if people are thinking that, they really need to get that out of their minds. This thing is a interceptor, pretty heavy, pretty big, not very maneuverable. But one thing it did have is a gun. It had a gun. The MiG-25 didn't have one, so that's a good thing. So again, not my first choice. MiG-31 really isn't what I would prefer going up against an F-14. So next up is the Su-27 Flanker, introduced in 1985 though. So it's got the Phasotron N001 Miech radar with infrared search and track as well. Su-27 is real nice, carrying the R-27s, and the radar flavor, the infrared flavor. There's so many different types of the R-27. Carries the R-73 also. It also carried the R-77 Adder, but here's the issue with that, especially when we're talking about timelines. The R-77 Adder didn't enter service till about 2002. So really what you have is a bunch of Russian aircraft that were facing AMRAAM and Phoenix equipped Western aircraft, and all the Russian planes had with a semi-active radar homing missile. So if Gaijin wants to do, some time warping here, I mean, I guess they could give the Su-27, the Adder. I mean, this is a true air superiority fighter, not just an interceptor. But they're going to have challenges here because Russia didn't really have this stuff around 1974. Moving on to its little brother, the MiG-29, and you know, Germany and Russia would be able to get the MiG-29. So you know, you got the Sapphire-29 radar, which is a really good one, an infrared search and track. The MiG-29 is able to carry pretty much the same missiles as the Su-27 flanker. You know, it carries the R-27, the R-73 Archer, R-60M, but MiG-29, unless we're talking about versions beyond the Alpha, did not carry any active radar homing missiles. So we're really limited to the R-27s, you know, in the semi-active radar homing flavor and in the infrared flavor. So that's about it. It's a good plane, a good dogfighter. I wouldn't mind flying this against the F-14, but it's still going to be a challenge. So moving on a little bit, let's talk about the Tornado air defense variant introduced in 1985. So Italy and the United Kingdom both use this plane. This was a long-range interceptor variant of the Tornado. Had the AI-24 Foxhunter radar, the ability to carry the Sky Flash, which we were pretty familiar with already. Could carry the AMRAAM, AM-9L, and also the ASRAAM. So this is a pretty good rival to the F-14. You know, it has a good radar set. It's an interceptor, not really a dogfighter, but it does have active radar homing missiles. If Gaijin is going to introduce the AMRAAM, I don't know if they'll do that though. But you know, this is a possibility to put in the game, even if they only just gave it the Sky Flash and the AM-9Ls. Next up, and a really good rival to the F-14 would be the F-16. So Italy could get this, Taiwan could get it, Israel could get it as well. The F-16 the early versions didn't have BVR capability up until at least Block 15, and then it got Sparrow missiles. So you got the APG-66 radar, which is a really good radar set, AM-9Ls, the AM-7F, also the ability to carry the AMRAAM, although I don't think that Gaijin would be doing that. But with the F-16, again, which is not widely known, Italy did fly 30 of these. They leased 30 of them as an interim measure to fill the gap until the Eurofighters arrive. So Italy could end up getting the F-16 and the Tornado ADV, which would be really nice for them. Okay, so next up is the F-18, also introduced in 1974. And I bring this one up because Sweden could get the F-18 by the way of Finland, because Finland operates the F-18. We have an APG-65 radar, AM-9Ls, AM-7F Sparrows, and of course the ability to carry the AMRAAM. So really good rival to the F-14. I would certainly love to fly an F-18 against the Tomcat. Another possibility for Sweden would be obviously the JA-37D with the PS-46 radar, still carrying RB-24Js, but also now carrying the RB-74, which is the AM-9L. The RB-71, of course, the Sky Flash, and the ability to also carry the RB-99, which is the AM-120 AMRAAM. So a good addition for Sweden. I wouldn't mind flying this against the Tomcat either, but you may be noticing a theme. No active radar homing missiles until the AMRAAM. So talking about Chinese fighters, of course we got the J-11, which is pretty much a carbon copy of the Su-27 flanker, so I won't go over that. But we do have some new F-8/J-8s finbacks. So we have the F-82M, which was released in 1996 though, with the Zook 82 pulse Doppler radar. You know, it could carry the R-27, the PL-7, the PL-8, the PL-11, R-77, and the PL-12. Although on the R-77 and the PL-12, I don't know, with these missiles being so new, if Gaijin would time warp and give them those missiles. So the F-82M was meant for export. The next one up here is the J-82H, or just the J-8H or F. And this is released in 1998 with the KLJ-1 radar, which is supposed to be a really good radar set, carrying the R-27, PL-11, PL-12, R-77, and the ability to carry the PL-8. So kind of the same missile choices on the F-82M. But again, with those active radar homing missiles being really new, not really sure if those would make it to the game. So another addition here would be Germany could get the F-4 ICE with the APG-65 radar AM-9Ls and AMRAAM 120s because, that's the major upgrade for this jet. So, yeah, another F-4 in the game, but a really advanced F-4 with finally some good BVR missiles. All right, another possibility here is the AV-8B Harrier II Plus, flown by Italy in this case, with an APG-65 radar set, AM-9Ls, AM-7s, and AM-120s. I would want to fly this against the F-14, but, it's a possibility to add for a nation like Italy, which really wouldn't have anything else. Like I said, I'm trying to stay close on the timelines here, but we're starting to get a little bit far away from 1974. So moving on to France here is the Mirage 4000, which came out in 1979. Had the RDY radar Magic 2 missiles, it could carry those. It could also maybe carry the Mica active radar homing missile, and it definitely carried the Super 530 semi-active radar homing missiles. This is a big and beautiful aircraft. They call it the Super Mirage in the late 1970s, and French officials then said that it rivaled the then new F-15A Eagle. This jet had 11 hardpoints, carried a lot of fuel, had tremendous strike capabilities. It was offered into the export market, but sadly no export customers appeared, and the French Air Force did not adopt the Mirage 4000 either. They more concentrated on the Mirage 2000. But still though, this is a possibility for France. We just saw the Mirage Milan, so who knows? This could be something that would definitely rival an F-14A Tomcat, and I would actually love to fly this against that. So up next is the Mirage 2000-5, introduced in 1979. Not the Dash 5, but the overall Mirage 2000. Had the RDY radar set, could carry Magic 2s. Also later on got the ability to carry the Mica active radar homing missile, and it also carried the Super 530 semi-active radar homing missile. So the 2000-5 was a major upgrade of the 2000C, and to show you what I mean, the Dash 5 had an even more advanced RDY pulse Doppler radar, and it had the ability to carry up to 6 Mica thrust vectoring missiles in the active radar mode or in the infrared mode, and it can also carry the Magic 2s, 2 of those. So lots of capability on the 2000-5, but honestly, I think France kind of deserves it at this point. A lot of their aircraft have been pretty big disappointments, and if we're going to go up against the F-14, kind of going to need some kind of capability. But next up is the Mirage F1 MF 2000, which was a Royal Moroccan Air Force conversion or upgrade of the Mirage F1. Had an advanced RDY-3 radar, could carry the Mica, Magic 2, and AM-9Ls or Ms. So another possibility, really new though. This came out in 2005, so again, Gaijin time warping. I don't know what they're going to do. Alright, next up is the F-4 2000 Kurnass, an advanced upgrade of the F-4. Israel flew this, had the APG-76 radar, which is really advanced. Could carry Python 3s, 4s, AM-7 Sparrows, some Chaffeur 2s. So a really good upgrade of the F-4 2000 for Israel. This could definitely be something that you could fly against the F-14 with some success, especially with the Python missiles. Right, so next up I have the Japanese Mitsubishi F-15J and DJ Eagle, coming out in 1981. Obviously, America also has the F-15, but it's not likely that the F-15 would be released to counter the F-14 in the same tech tree. So that's why I put it over here. I think it's a good bet that maybe Japan would get the F-15 Eagle first is a good counter. So of course we have the APG-63 radar, which is a really good set. Japan also has their own indigenously built missiles, the Mitsubishi AAM-3, which is an improved Sidewinder, the AAM-4, which is a Japanese version of the AMRAAM, and the AAM-5, which is really advanced, a helmet-mounted sight, high off-bore sight infrared missile. We probably won't see that. And of course the F-15J or DJ could carry the AM-7 Sparrow. So we have all those things. We really have a good air superiority fighter here. Would it have active radar missiles? Probably not, but it definitely would give an F-14 a run for its money. So another fighter for Japan would be the Mitsubishi F-2. So this fighter is not an F-16. It's closely related, has a 25% larger wing, but it's not an F-16. But it did have the first active electronically scanned array radar on a combat aircraft, the APG-1. Mitsubishi F-2 was introduced in 1995, so a pretty relatively new aircraft. It also had the ability to carry the Mitsubishi AAM-3s, 4s, and 5s, and of course Sidewinders and Sparrow missiles. So another possibility for Japan. I don't know that Gaijin would choose to pull this in right now. This would probably be something more in the line for Japan, in a year or two. Alright, so the last fighter I'll talk about here is from Taiwan again, the AIDC FCK-1 Ching-Kuo. I probably mispronounced that. But it has the GD-53 radar, also carries the TC-2 Sky Sword active radar homing missile, and AM-9L. So a really good multi-role fighter. Came out in about 1989 though. So I would fly this against the F-14. Nice dogfighter, multi-role fighter. Be kind of fun and actually something really different. So I'd love to see it in the game. Another possibility for the Chinese tech tree. Alright, so that's all I've got today. So there's a lot of aircraft I didn't put on here, mostly because they weren't viable counters against the F-14. They were mostly air-to-ground focused. And as you can see, the overwhelming theme here is Gaijin's put the Phoenix active radar homing missile in the game before many other nations had fielded their own active radar homing missile, and a lot of the other countries hadn't really even fielded a true 4th gen fighter yet. So in conclusion here, the big issues that I'm trying to get out is that unless Gaijin does some significant time warping, there aren't really going to be any active radar homing counters. So like I was saying, the AMRAAM was first delivered in 1991. Missiles like the Mica didn't come along until 1996, and the R-77 didn't come along until 2002. So there's an issue there. The second issue is that the F-14 probably right now in the game won't get a true counter. It's just going to face itself, kind of like the F-5 and the A-10. We're going to have mixed teams. I don't really like that a whole lot, but that's just how it's going to be, and it is what it is. The F-14 is just going to end up facing the F-14 for a while. The last issue here is the 4th gen fighter timelines. They're just different, and Gaijin is going to need to figure it out. It's like their problem to solve, not mine. Alright, so if you stuck around this far, I really appreciate you checking out the video. If you like what you saw, go ahead and hit the like button. And always, feel free to comment on this. Anything I missed, what are your thoughts on this? Can there be an actual counter to the F-14 right now? Or do you think Gaijin needs to throw out those conventions they adhere to and just start time warping and juggling around stuff? Alright, I'll see you in a future video. Thanks a lot.